Hey there, Internet! Welcome to the Hard On Gear channel, where I discuss and review my used and abused knives and gear, so that you know what is or isn't worth spending your hard-earned money on.
Got mail.
This is one of the most sold knives in the world, and it is a brand I've not tried. It is a steel I have not tried. Ontario Knife Company, Randall's Adventure Trading. That, Esee, look familiar? Version I got in D2 cost me around $62 plus tax Canadian, so about 40 bucks American, give or take the exchange rate at the time. You can also get the R.A.T number 1 or R.A.T number 2 in Os 8 steel, which is a little more budget, definitely more stainless, not quite as good edge retention and stuff, obviously, but very easy to sharpen, and definitely makes it a more budget knife than the D2 version. Let's get this puppy out. So this is the R.A.T, Ontario R.A.T number 2. This knife is in D2 tool steel, and it's very oily because D2 is not a stainless steel, and this is the first time I've ever purchased something like D2 or M4, anything that's not somewhat stainless for a folding knife. And I've got 1095 carbon steel fixed blades, but those are normally well coated. The edges, I'm normally not super worried about them being pretty or super well maintained because they're bush knives and I can sharpen them up pretty quick. But non-stainless steels will rust out here. I'll plug a picture in here. So just know that I am going to rust things that can be rusted in the environment that I live in. I chose the R.A.T number 2 first before purchasing the R.A.T number 1 is because I've already got plenty of larger knives, and something this size is a little unique to my collection. It'll be very good for those of you who are familiar with the R.A.T number 1, R.A.T number 2, to use those as size comparisons, because as you've seen on pretty much every channel, they are a constant companion size comparison for just about any knife, because most people are familiar with the R.A.T number 1 or 2. So look for a R.A.T number 1 in my future. For now, we'll see what the R.A.T number 2 does. The Manix 2 was purchased to be my new... I gotta change the pocket clip on that bad boy. It was purchased to be my new EDC folding knife because it is still a little bit smaller than the big bad Recon 1, which is a monster. From there, I've upgraded to the Manix 2, which has certainly got a nicer high quality steel and S30V. More expensive knife, just a little bit smaller, more compact, a little more visually friendly to the public. And it's still a little large, and by most people's standards, that's still a large folding knife. The R.A.T number 2, the bigger brother, of course, being the R.A.T model number 1, which is probably closer to the size of the Manix, I do believe. Then I will get myself a R.A.T model 1 here sometime in the near future. I might get that one in Os 8 just so I can use it a little more as a low maintenance budget folder just for a backup, replace the cold steel Luzon. The R.A.T number 2 is going to be a nice slim pocket carry for me if I'm ever wearing shorts or sweats somewheres where I don't want to be wearing a large knife on me, and if I want something that's going to be extremely capable, this is probably going to do the trick. Let's see what this edge looks like out of the box. Oh yeah. Oh, new knives are so fun because the factory obviously wants them to be as sharp as possible to make a good impression. So you're normally getting a push cutting sharp. Oh yeah, you normally get a push cutting sharp knife. So long as it's a decent folding knife or a decent fixed blade made of a decent steel, you're probably going to get, well, it's not perfect, but you're going to get push cutting sharp out of the box. I'm sure that push cutting sharpness won't last forever, but D2, very good edge retention compared to most steels, especially compared to a lot of the folding knife steels that I've used. So I'm expecting this to hold up decently. But yeah, that's certainly push cutting sharp. No, you can't quite do the S cuts and that kind of thing. No, not quite, but yeah. Yeah, no issues? Right. The D2 is most definitely going to have to be oiled, and I'm going to have to make a very good effort on my part to make sure that this ends up getting oiled. If I do not oil this D2, it will rust. When it rusts, I will have to maintain and take care of it, and eventually I'll have to resharpen it if it rusts on the edge. I don't know what this D2 is going to be like to sharpen, but I've heard it's a pain. Anyone online will tell you it's not the most fun steel, and any tool steel that you get like that is probably going to be a very hard steel that could handle machine wear and such. So expect that this will not be fun to sharpen. So if you haven't, check out Blade HQ's article where they've got all the blade steel information you could probably want on most of the popular steels that you're going to find in most folding knives and fixed blades. There's a lot of different comparisons and a few different paragraphs on the discussion between different steels. Probably the best part about this article, this page on Blade HQ's site, are these steel charts. They show you the edge retention, the toughness, the corrosion resistance, and the ease of sharpening for each knife, and this diagram sort of gives you an idea of where the strengths and weaknesses are of each steel. So yeah, D2, not very stainless, isn't going to be fun to sharpen, but it's pretty damn tough, and it's going to hold an edge pretty well compared to most steels that I own other than 1095. It's not going to be the most fun thing to sharpen. I don't know if it's going to be any different than the S30V. I think they're rated to be around the same sharpenability-wise. D2 might be a little bit tougher, but it's going to hold up to most wear and tear that I use it for, especially considering this won't be something I'm carrying every day on me. I like to carry a larger folding knife than this, but this will be a great backup, and it will be a great opportunity to test out D2 in the salty environment that I live in. I'll check on the chromium content and all that, and I'll find out a little more information before I do my full review on this, but I don't think the chromium content is any more than like, I don't know, 8 or 9% or something. It could be higher. I don't think it's much higher than that, because this definitely will rust, and I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to have to make a habit of oiling this knife a little bit. It does have a nice blow-through design, so it's going to be very easy to clean, a very decent field pocket knife, so long as you're not worried about rust, or as long as you keep some oil on it, not a big issue. Where I'm not using it all the time, it should be easier to keep it oiled, but that will be something that will help me build that habit so I take slightly better care of my gear. The other thing is a liner lock. I'm not too keen on liner locks. I don't go hunting for them because I am left-handed, and opening a liner lock with the left hand can be done. It's not that bad, but it's just a pain in the ass because I've got to kind of turn the knife towards me, manipulate it with my thumb. I like to keep my thumb right there by the base of the blade just so that it doesn't close on my finger and slice me in the knuckle. So that's a pain. With the right hand, no big deal. Just bloop, get your thumb out of the way. No issue. So yeah, not the most ambidextrous friendly knife, but this is a 4-way adjustable pocket clip. Tip up, tip down, either direction, little lanyard hole there. Super, super tiny Torx heads, which is not great. Those look like they might be 5s or 6s, but actually, I bet you that's just about the same size as... Ha! Look at that. About the same size as the Esee Izula II. So, to give you an idea, that is a very small fixed blade, and that is a very small folding knife. And what you've got here is something that I'm pretty much only going to carry if I'm like out for a run in athletic shorts or something. That's really where this is going to come in handy. But it's going to be used. I'm going to see how long that D2 holds up, and I will have some fun practicing sharpening that. Keep an eye out in the coming months for the full first initial impression review of this knife once I've had it for a couple months, and look for some more detail and a little more wear and tear, and we'll do the hog rating and go through all of the specs and usability and durability of this cool, classic, very popular knife. But yeah, not much more to say about this knife because, again, I've not looked into this. I've not really ever considered it to be something that I would carry on a regular basis. This is a little bit more my speed as far as what you're going to see me carry on as far as a folding blade. And if you're curious, check out the Hog channel and look for some different videos and reviews on these guys here. It's really, the Ontario R.A.T knives, and Ontario knives in general, just have never really been too big on my radar because they're very meh. They're not exciting. There's nothing super flashy or stand out about the performance of these things. And in the not-so-distant future, we have the pocket clip switched around to the other side. While I was doing that, I realized I did not talk about the ergos or the color or a couple other things. So you can get this in all kinds of colors, but I did decide to go with the coyote brown, mostly because, hell, I talk so much about hypothetical coyote attacks, why not get a coyote brown knife? So to mix up my color scheme a little bit, as most of my stuff is black on black, or just at least black handled, the brown's going to mix it up a little bit, add some diversity to my collection. I didn't talk too much about the ergos or how this felt or anything, but you know, it's just not that significant compared to the Recon 1 or the Manix 2, which are the two folders I've now kind of spent the most time looking at the specs and the ergonomics and all that stuff. And you know, you can choke up a little bit with the Recon 1 here and do some pretty fine stuff if you want to. Not really recommendable, you know, be careful because you will slide up on those serrations. But it's quite large. It's still, honestly though, feels to me a lot more comfortable than the R.A.T number 2. And the Manix 2 is probably, by most people's standard, one of the more comfortable and ergonomic knives that you could possibly put in your hands. After 8 years of carrying this bad boy, after 2 months of fondling this basically nonstop, this didn't really shock and awe me that much when I opened it out of the box. And my natural reaction was exactly what you've seen, which is it's what I expected it to be, which is a very capable, slippery, full of oil, but a very capable knife. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very, very comfortable. Compared to the cheap pocket trash I carried around for years before the Recon one, this is certainly so much more well thought out from the R.A.T, the Randall's Adventure Training, the Esee guys. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still very comfortable, and I'm not a big fan of small knives, and considering that, I am surprised at how much I do like the feel of this, and when you choke up on it, I'm choking up quite a ways up the blade, but to me that's a pretty comfortable position. There is some jimping on the back here, which allows you, if you have smaller hands, to get probably a full grip on this very comfortably. But for me, it's a little small, and for most people with like even a medium hand, this is probably pushing the small size. But it does feel very nice. It's cut out, and the ergonomics are very molding to the hand if my hand were smaller. And also the pocket clip, once I switched it from the tip down position, which I don't know why people carry tip down, but hey, power to you, do you. But when it's in tip up, in this my left-handed position here where I'm normally going to be drawing it from, which means I can just basically, I draw, pull out of my pocket, slide my thumb up, and should be able to get a nice positive, careful, get a nice positive flick on that to open it up. Versus before, I found when I had the pocket clip up there by the thumb stud, it just makes it a little more awkward because I'm not used to carrying like that. Check out the full review on the R.A.T Model 2 in D2 when that comes out. For now, this is Hard On Gear Channel signing off.